And now on CRN Radio, it's time for Silver Moments with Dr. Marcia Baltimore.
You're never too old for a Ford. No, baby. Never too old for a Ford. Well, maybe. That's my song for the Ford for the seniors of Leisure World, because Ford is an American car, and I like to think about American economy when we buy a car. Now, we're going to introduce Dr. Barnett, Dr. Mark Barnett, who's going to tell you about his Chinese history class. Go ahead, Dr. Barnett.
Well, I live here in Leisure World. I've lived here in Leisure World for about 12 years, a little over 12 years. And one of the clubs that I became involved with here was the Open Mind Forum, which has existed now for about 20 years. It's now just called the Open Forum, but it's not exactly what it sounds like. We do, you might say, college-level classes, lectures, and discussion on various items in history, philosophy, and such. We have another club called the Science Club, where we do science topics. But several years ago, I took a survey of the people that come to the club, and they wanted to learn everything. They marked everything. And so I went through for almost 4 years on Western civilization. And for the last year and a half, I did a class on Asian civilization, where we focused on the history of China from ancient times until now. Well, we finished with China here about a month ago. And now we're going to look at the history of China in the Open Forum. And the Open Forum meets on every other Thursday, Tuesdays, the first Tuesday and third Tuesdays of the month in Clubhouse 3 at 10 o'clock in the morning. And so we're going to start with the ancient dynasties of China, and there are about, depending on how they're reckoned, about 10 to 14 dynasties. And we'll be looking at a little bit of the political history, but we'll look at the geography. But what I really want to focus on in the the Chinese history, still thinking of India, on the Chinese history is the intellectual and social history, how the people lived, what their customs were, what their religion, what their philosophies were, how did Confucianism develop, how did Taoism develop, what was the impact of Buddhism on China, and also what were the social and inventions that impacted the outside world from China, like the compass, like gunpowder, like paper, for example. What was the impact of Genghis Khan and the...
Did the Chinese, invent gunpowder?
Yes, they did. About 600 AD, something like that, yes. And of course, then the Europeans picked up on it, and of course, we now have all of that. But so for the next year probably or so, we will look at the various dynasties, a little bit about the politics of ancient China, moving up to the modern realm. We'll look at one of the things that I do impersonations of famous people. In 2 weeks, on the 21st, I will be Confucius in costume. And then probably about 4 or 5 months from now, I will be Genghis Khan and explaining the Mongol invasions and the impact of the Mongol invasions. A little tidbit here, trivia. It was because of the Mongol star charts, and because they had to navigate across the steppes of Eurasia, and they were great light cavalry warriors, that their star charts helped Copernicus determine that it was the Earth that went around the sun. It was one of the factors that Copernicus had access to. So little things like that, and Marco Polo, how he brought noodles back to the West, and we have spaghetti because of that. The influence of then in the 1700s of Chinese porcelain and pottery. And for example, most people know of like the Ming Dynasty and Ming pottery. Who were the Mings, for example? So, and how did then finally the emperors of China end? That was about 1911, 1912. And how did they develop a republic? And then what was a little bit about the Red Communist Revolution. So
I'm thinking it's a lot to absorb without a visual timeline. Well, you're going to have that at that point.
I do handouts and all
That's
those things.
good for the people. They'll like that because you can't remember what you're saying if you don't have a visual timeline.
No, I do all kinds of handouts.
Thank you for coming.
Okay,
thank you
very much.
And now I want to go to another subject, which has to do with America. Why are there more older people in the workplace now than before? Between 1977 and 2007, the employment of workers 65 and over in America. Now, we left China for Dr. Barnett in his class, but we're just talking about common information that came from the United States Bureau of Labor Statistics. And we want to know why we have so many more women, 65%, and the number of employed men rose. And the women rose greater, 147% of a rise in between 1977 and 2007, 75% of a rise in the women employed. 147% of the rise, and the men 75% only. So that's double the men because they're living longer. I think the women are helping them to live longer. So the women went 172%, the men went 75%. Now, we have to look at what we're going to do for these people. We have to find jobs if they're not yet ready to retire. And that's going to be a little bit of difficulty because the younger people want the jobs as well. So the country has a dilemma to face, and that's what their problem is. In the meantime, we're going to talk about how you calm down from this, and something like your animal pets help you do that, don't they?
They do. They really do.
This young lady was our guest last week, she's back again, and her name from last week is the same. It's Mrs. Susan Otsuki, who is a cook and wrote a book called Kitchenless Cooking, and also has an interest in the vet concept, the pet vet. Could you tell us about what you do with your pets?
Well, excuse me. Pardon me. Yeah, it's pets are very for many people they're your companion, and I have a story to tell a little bit, if you'd like to hear it, about my cat, Mu Ling, who really, literally, almost saved my life.
Yes, tell us. She's your cat.
Well,
and how did she almost save your life?
Well, this happened a few years ago, and it was right after Thanksgiving, and I was up at, excuse me, I was up at my house at Lake Tahoe, and we had been at my brother-in-law's for Thanksgiving, so we weren't cooking or anything that weekend. And the Monday following Thanksgiving, I'm a very sound sleeper. And just to set this up a little bit, the bedrooms in that house are downstairs, and then the doors, the main entrance, is upstairs with the living area.
So like on a hill?
Yeah, it's on a slope,
I see.
And I was home by myself. I'm a very sound sleeper, and just before 6 o'clock in the morning, my little cat, who hardly ever meowed, never did anything, started meowing and going crazy, jumping up and down on the bed and trying to get my attention. So I finally woke up, and I could hear pounding, and it was getting louder and louder and louder. So I turned on the lights, and I went upstairs to the front door. And as I came around the landing, I heard a splintering of wood and metal, and as I came around the corner, there was a huge bear that had just broken into the house and broke down the door.
What door did he come
from? The
from?
front door.
Oh my God.
So he was coming down on his big paws and had big yellow teeth, and I just didn't even think. I just started yelling at him at the top of my lungs to get out, get out, get out. And he did, but he was too big to turn around. So he had to back out and then go down the stairs.
And he obeyed you to
I had no idea, no training, nothing at all. But that's what it was. I think maybe my flight attendant training kicked in, but I just started screaming at this guy. But it doesn't quite end there. It had been snowing the night before, so there were bear prints all around. And I called 911. I called my husband, who was in Seal Beach getting ready to work a flight, and I said, "You need to come home now. A bear just broke in the house." But my cell phone was upstairs, so I couldn't have called for help. And I went to call 911 on the landline, and it was dead. And I found out later from the phone guy that mice had eaten through the landline. So it was just everything at once. So anyway, the sheriff came, and
how did the sheriff hear you?
I called 911, and they called the sheriff.
On what phone?
On my cell phone. after the bear left.
You got upstairs?
Yeah, I was upstairs when the bear broke in. He was just
Oh,
coming
you were
through
still
the...
upstairs?
Yeah, I was still upstairs, yes.
Oh,
I didn't
see,
go back
see.
down.
You never went downstairs?
No, I stayed
Okay,
upstairs.
okay.
And then when
Good.
the sheriff came, he saw all the paw prints, and I guess the bear had tried to break into another house and was unsuccessful, so somehow he came to our place, but there was no leftover turkey or any food around for him, so we really don't know what happened, but... And so anyway, my husband's car was in getting service, so I had to leave and go down to Reno to pick him up, and the door's hanging on a hinge, so I found a bungee cord and took
Wait a minute. Was the police still there, the sheriff?
No, he left.
He left you alone?
Yep.
Without you driving away?
No, I was by myself after he left.
Wow.
So I was
Pretty
just hoping the bear wasn't
careless.
coming back in, and it didn't. But I had to drive down to Reno, so I couldn't figure out. The door was hanging on a hinge, and the deadbolt was down the stairs, and it was all splintered, and there were claw marks on the front of the door where the bear had been trying to get in. So I took a bungee cord and wrapped it around the handle, and then wrapped it around the railing.
That was a good idea.
Yeah, I have some young neighbors up there, so I let them know what had gone on, and they came over to take pictures of the...
And you never told the sheriff you had to get your husband?
No, I told him.
And he left anyway?
He left. He said they would be watching. So anyway, it took me 2 hours to go down and get my husband. His car wasn't getting fixed, and we came up, and the first thing he saw were the scratches on the door, and then I guess the
Well,
sheriff...
he's not a bear.
And then the sheriff notified Fish and Game, and the warden came, and he measured the paw prints.
And did the bear ever come back?
Not that I know of, not here that day, no.
How do you prevent him from coming back again now when you're not there?
Well, that's a good question. I really don't know. But the sheriff measured the paw prints, and he said it was a 600 plus pound bear, and he brought a bear trap with him. It's like a cylinder with pomegranates inside to try and get the bear to go in the trap. But the bear just didn't come back. But the door.
How long ago did this happen?
It happened about 3 years ago.
And how much monitoring do you have going on there from the Forestry Service?
They're around, but we're kind of in a remote area, so.
And there's no homes near there?
There are homes, but it's more like a vacation area, so they're not, well, now there are more permanent residents, but a lot of them are vacation homes up there. And there have been other bear break-ins, but that's
There have been many?
Yes, quite a few.
Is there a patrol for anti-bear
Well,
invasion?
there's Fish and Game, but they aren't, they're not there all the time, no.
Well, that is a very amazing story, but I think you need
Anyway,
help from the Forestry Service.
well, and the moral of the story is, if it hadn't been for my cat, I wouldn't have known the bear was in the house, so she saved me that day.
But you have to have more future control. You can't stay there alone like that, because you don't know when that bear's going to come back.
Well, hopefully it won't come back.
You should report it to the Forestry Service.
Okay, Marcia, we are taking that brief time out. We're
Thank
going to
you.
pause for about 3 minutes and come back with more
Thank you.
Silver Moments to
We'll
come right
wait
here
for
on
it. Looking
CRN
forward.
Digital Talk Radio.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. There was some story about a bear in her house. I hope she can go. You go to the Forestry Service and have a plan made up, a connection plan with the cell phone to their office, all open all the time, because you have a reporting system when you go back in. With the Forestry Service.
Yeah.
You're away from it the 2 weeks in January, you're back there
Right.
the 2 weeks
That's a
in
good
February,
idea.
whatever.
That's a really
You have to get organized, because otherwise you in danger. That's really bad. Well, I wanted to talk about something much more pleasant. And this is the year in review from Time Magazine, and I'm seeking
There we go,
permission
Paul.
for them to tell you all about it. And who is the caller?
Hi, this is Anna from
Go ahead.
Asia World. I'd like to ask Susan for a recipe from her kitchen with cooking
Oh,
for
you want to
chicken.
go back to the recipe? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh,
Ask
hi.
the question.
Okay.
Hi, Anna.
Okay, for a chicken recipe.
Oh, hi, Anna. Thanks for calling in. Yeah, the recipe I'm going to suggest is really simple, and it's a family favorite. It's called chicken paprikash, and it was my grandma's recipe. So all you would need is a chicken breast, a half an onion, Hungarian sweet paprika, canola or grapeseed oil, light sour cream, and white egg noodles. So you just cut the chicken into cubes and dice up the onion, put it in a Ziploc bag, and add a little flour. And then shake that around, heat the oil, brown the chicken, then cover that with water and let the water boil down twice, and on the second time you're doing the water, add in the Hungarian paprika. Once it's come down twice and it's nice and thick, just stir in some light sour cream and serve that over egg noodles.
Give me the percentage of powder. Like a teaspoon, tablespoon?
Oh, I would do a tablespoon.
Tablespoon,
Yeah.
okay. That's a great recipe.
And then 2
Thank you.
tablespoons of light sour cream. Thank you, Anna.
Are you right, Anna? Did you get it all down?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. We're happy to do that for you because that's important. And I think that bear was looking for that Papa Crunch. I tell you, I would have been frozen. And you know, you're lucky you were upstairs because he wouldn't know how to climb stairs, a bear.
Oh, I was downstairs. Oh, lucky he was upstairs.
I don't know.
Yeah, I was downstairs.
Oh, that's right. You were different places. Yeah, that's good. I was going to review the year of 2013 for you all. And if you want to listen in the home radio station, pick a pencil. This is what's in a combination of Time and Marcia. John Kerry talked to the German students. This is not in Time, this is me. And he said, in America, you have a right to be stupid. That to me is a big, good joke. But that's an important thing. We don't look at ourselves as omnipotent. We look at ourselves as cooperative, and we have to stay that way worldwide. Next, that's number one. Number two is a government shutdown. So how stupid are we? We had to close our government to get some legislation done. That's not too smart. Number three is agree on a budget. And we couldn't do that until we had two opposite side of the party people come together and discuss it. And that was Mitch McConnell and Harry Reid. And our hats are off to them for just sitting down. But then they came up with it and they put the government back in business. It would have been terrible had they not done that. Now the next one is the United States Supreme Court strikes down the Defense of the Marriage Act, and we're still going to go through that in the year 14. It's starting already this morning with the Supreme Court. Then we had Senator Feinstein on the subject of Edward Snowden. Now, this isn't one of Time's ideas either, but it's my idea. Because what Senator Feinstein did was, she said, we're not going to tap phones no matter how much we need the information. That's un-American. That's illegal. And I give her a lot of credit for that. She said, we're not going to tap the phones. Finally, we have the Boston Massacre, a terrible thing. And we have shame from that. Then we have the Texas senator called Wendy Davis, a darling girl, looks like this beautiful lady with the cookbook. But Wendy Davis is a senator from Texas. And she said, we are not cutting education funding in Texas, and I'm going to filibuster till you say it's over. So for 11 hours, that young lady did that, taking back the country. And I'll come back after the break. Thank you.
Now, back to Silver Moments with Dr. Marcia Baltimore.
I guess I just gave you some silver moments, but I also gave you some bronze ones, which are sad, like the Boston Massacre. That's a sad moment in American history. And a happy moment is Harry Reid sitting down with Mitch McConnell. That's terrific. And they did it. They got the job done. That's what we all have to think about, I believe, not the other way. So let's talk about Wendy Davis. She made education work for the state of Texas, her state. She's the senator from there. And she filibustered 11 hours to take off the table the cut in Texas education. So now we have some more famous events in the year 2013. One of them was a natural disaster in Tokyo, which was the tornado. And then they had another tornado in Oklahoma. And then they had an Arizona wildfire, which caused the death of 19 firefighters. So we had natural disasters that were horrendous in this country last year. And we had some positive and some negative human events that were self-made by people that got us out of trouble and some that got us into trouble. That's how the world goes, I think. Now, who did we lose this last year in our world that are no longer among us? We lost Jonathan Winters, Annette Funicello, Edie Gourmet, Esther Williams, Jean Stapleton, and Joyce Brothers, and Patty Page. So people have left us, and we remember them, and we thank them for their enjoyment of life and the transfer of that enjoyment through song to us. So now we have to talk about a little bit in the future. Let's take an example of our health, for example, and talk about Chris Christie, the governor of New Jersey. If he doesn't watch his health, we aren't going to have him long. I'm saying that now, I'm not his doctor, but I think he could think about it, and he is. And we can all take an example from that. And here's what he says about himself, which is adorable. I'm basically the healthiest fat guy you've ever seen, is his joke. And I think that's pretty good. He knows, so he's going to do something about it. So are you knowing and going to do something about whatever your problem is? That's what you have to do. Nobody's going to do it for you. Now, Miss Otsuki has recipes for you. She just gave one great recipe. It has all the good stuff in it, right?
Oh, yeah. The chicken paprikash recipe.
It surely does. So I thought that was very good. And there's other things in there which lend you to be a good cook, like your upbringing in Canada. You told me you were in Vancouver when you got married. Is that right?
I was living in Vancouver, but when I met my husband, I met him in Honolulu, but we got married in Honolulu.
Oh, Honolulu, but
Yeah.
you were living in I know the word Vancouver now.
Yeah, I was based out of Vancouver for another.
Based by whom?
Canadian Pacific Air.
Oh, you were a hostess. That's
Yeah,
good.
they are no longer around though. It's one of those merger things.
That's good.
Yeah, it was great. Got to travel the world.
So tell me something else about your coffee cup chocolate collection.
Well, it's a coffee cup collection, and it's a series of recipes that can all be made in a coffee cup. And I can give you a couple of examples if you
Yeah,
don't
do that.
mind.
Be good.
Yeah, it's you can make cream cheese in a coffee cup.
Really?
Yep.
What do you do to do that?
All you need are two tablespoons of light sour cream and about a half a teaspoon or quarter teaspoon of Hawaiian salt. And you mix them all together, and then what you do is you fold them into a paper towel like a tent, and you put the sour cream in the middle with the little bit of salt. Then you take the four corners of the paper towel and you make a little tent. Then you put that on the top of the coffee cup, put a piece of plastic wrap over it, then an elastic band around that, and then
You're cooking on top of the coffee cup.
well, you're making cream cheese. You're not actually cooking.
Oh, you're making cream cheese.
Right,
Okay.
right. And then you put it in the your little refrigerator overnight, and the next morning you just turn it upside down and you make cream
That's
cheese.
so cute.
So you can do
I never thought that. Heard of
you
anything
can
so
do any
cute.
flavor. You can do chives, or you can do cranberries for Thanksgiving morning, or all kinds of things.
Thank you for doing that for us. That's a very excellent idea. We have You're Never Too Old for a Ford in the back burner. And perhaps someday somebody will call me up and say we want to sponsor that on air. I met Mr. Cal Worthington the day before he passed away. It just shook me. And I sang him that song.
I really enjoyed it.
Well, it was funny, you know. It was supposed to be funny. You're never too old for a Ford. So I was just thinking about that. We
You have a
read.
follow-up call for a recipe?
Oh, all right. We'll have that. Hello.
Hello?
Yes. What did you want to learn?
Hi, I'd like to have the recipe for cooking the bear.
Great line.
I can tell you, it probably tastes like chicken.
That is a great
That's
question.
That's a great question. But no, the bear got away.
That is
Okay,
so
thank
cute.
you.
Thanks for
Thank
calling
you.
in with that.
Right.
What's your name? Don't you want to tell us?
I think she's gone.
She's gone.
She hung up? She's
Yes.
funny. We want to talk to her. All
That was
right.
good.
And there's one more man I want to talk to you about from the 2013. He was the man of the year, and I saved him for last. And who was he? The Pope. There you are. A very humble person, from what I gather. I never met him, but you know, the way he looks on television, the way he talks to the people, very humble. And we're lucky to have him because he'll make this a peaceful world, more peaceful than uprising, like the fellow from Korea who killed his own uncle. I couldn't believe that, could you?
No.
So the Pope is not going to do that, and maybe the Pope will say something about that Korean leader. I don't know. But if the Pope says something, it might change
I hope so.
the way people think about leading. It's the question of how to lead. To kill or to improve or to filibuster like the Texas lady
Yes.
senator.
Yes.
That's legal. Doesn't hurt anybody, doesn't kill anybody. But it certainly brings attention to the cause.
It does.
So I think that's one more little thing I wanted to say about the 10 most important events, and that's the finger test. There's the father with his 5 fingers spread out, and there's the baby with 3 of his fingers spread out. Look at that. The fingers are talking.
Prince George.
Isn't that great?
Prince George is so cute. Yeah.
The both of them are doing, they don't even speak to each other yet. The little
Oh.
guy doesn't talk. But he
Yeah.
knows how to do that. So I think it's very good that we look for things like that. And we say, we're not going to do things like the Korean president did. We're going to do like the Pope and the baby.
The baby.
That's right. And I was thinking about that for quite a while when I was picking all this information up. Because we have to look at the rest of the world. Now here's an example about how Leisure Village is going worldwide. This cover of News Magazine, which is our paper at Leisure World, has Mr. Roger Bennett of Mutual 7 putting a postcard into the mailbox in Galapagos. This is Galapagos. And that mailbox address is anyone in Leisure World. That's on the letter that he put in there.
Wow.
And guess what? It showed up. It showed up. It tells you on page 18 how it showed up. It's in your paper this morning. I just picked it up from my
Wow.
front door. And here it is. Page 18. That's not 18. Wait, forget it.
Here it is.
Okay.
15.
I must have pulled it out. I was so busy with it, I pulled it out.
Here it is.
Oh, you have
On
it.
this side.
Okay, so these people, the Bennetts, got the letter, and they brought it to the newspaper, and the postcard from the Galapagos was delivered to Carolyn and Roger by Heidi Cortese, the pretty young girl on the left. And she said that this should be delivered because it was written on the front of the envelope to the first person who showed up in the Galapagos from Leisure World, and she was that first person.
Wow.
And she delivered it to these people to whom it was addressed. Is that a story or what? It shows you that when you want to do something positive, you can do it.
That's wonderful.
Isn't that a
Yeah,
good
that's
story?
a great story.
And they got their letter. I don't know what it says, but maybe next week they'll come and tell us.
Maybe, that would
I
be
left them a
nice.
message. I don't know. But wouldn't that be something?
Yeah, and they could
To
bring the
tell us,
letter with
what
them,
did that
too.
letter say? Are you happy you got it? Who was it from? Do you know her?
I'd like to know what it said.
Yeah, we all would. And so
Yeah.
I'm working on it. See if she hears me, maybe
next-
she'll call up.
Yeah, maybe next time.
Or maybe she'll come over next week. So, we sang a song for Ford. We got letters from the Galapagos. 1 letter. Miracle letter, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
We saw the baby with his 3 fingers and the daddy with his 5. And we know we have a very good world if we make it so. So we don't have to kill uncles for political reasons. in our country. I hope we never do that. So I have nothing really more that's pronounced like those that we saw again. Do you have any more?
Sure, I can give a couple more recipes
Go
if
ahead.
you like.
Yes, you
All
may do
right,
that.
let me just pick something at random out of here.
And I'll find more year in review.
Okay, let's see. Oh, I have one that I call Sans Egg Salad. And it's egg salad made without eggs.
Really?
Yeah. And I used to buy it in the specialty store, and then they stopped carrying it, so I kind of had to decide to do it on my own. So basically, it's everything you would do with egg salad, like onion and celery, and you can use light mayo. But I drain tofu, and I mash that up, and then I add it to the onion and the celery and the mayo with some. I like curry powder in mine, but you can just put a little bit of pepper in there or paprika, and you mix it all together, and you can make an egg salad sandwich, and I think it's good, and I've had compliments on it, but if people don't eat eggs, they can have it.
Very good, very good.
Yeah.
Here is the quote from Time magazine about Christy on the bottom. And he said, "I'm the healthiest fat guy you've ever seen." I think he's got a good humor, that guy. And guys with good humor belong in politics because you can't go serious all the time. You can't. So we have a lot of interesting things. The brigade of the 555th Army Engineer Brigade, 555, hugs his children when he comes home from tour duty right there. We have to thank guys like that. They put their life on the line for us. So we have to know that. And this is a November 1st photo. 52,000 troops were stationed in Washington. And on November 1st, they were stationed in the nation, all expected to be home by the end of 2014. Oh, that's great.
That's this year.
Yes, the president is doing that. 52,000 coming back.
Wonderful.
Why were they there in the first place?
Yeah.
But anyway, they were, and now they're coming back, and that's very good.
That's a good picture, too. It's a good
Yeah,
photo.
he's with his family. So I think we have many things to think about over the 13-year. And these three young ladies have a prison ordeal in a house that is beyond belief from Cleveland.
Ugh.
So this is the year in review, and I could probably keep going forever on different ideas. But I think that each person has a different look at it, and my look at it was just presented to you. When people say the baby and the father have something in common, they look for it, and I looked for it. So that was it. Now we have another magazine we have to talk about, which is our own senior guide from Orange County. This is published in Orange County. And what are we talking about here? The most important thing in this community, which is Leisure World, is the caregiver that's inside of you when you are a caregiver. You have to have a personality for caregiving, or you're going to get caregiver burnout. So we want to counsel all the women, and I don't know if there are a few men, who do the caregiving to watch their own health. You watch your own health and you're of much better value to your community. But you are number one for yourself.
You can't look after someone else if you can't look after yourself. That's right. That's exactly.
He's playing his music. Thank you.
Okay, Marcia, on that note, we'll take a brief timeout. Final timeout of the show. Coming back with much more of Silver Moments with Dr. Marcia Baltimore right after this, right here on CRN Digital Talk Radio.
To your mother or your father, the older person, is one of the most important members of your extended family. Because when you did the work, you juggled your job, the care of your children, the social life, the home, the cooking, the exercise you needed, you maybe never realized how now the ride to the doctor's appointment is one of your most important jobs, and therefore you want to keep working, so you hired a caregiver. The caregiver duties may come after a certain illness, and if your loved one doesn't walk after a certain experience such as that, and learning on the walker how to walk. So when the burnout comes, you have to recognize it. The caregiver burnout has some symptoms, and that's what I want to read to you now. These are the symptoms of the caregiver burnout. The caregiver gets irritable, has a short temper, drinks a lot of alcohol, or takes a drug again, has weight loss, or has weight gain. People are different. They go in both directions. Relationship problems are prominent, and a worst symptom of all is road rage, using the car as a vehicle for tempering your behavior. That's not the way to do it. Go to the therapist. Don't spin the wheel. Another way people manifest burnout is by withdrawing from each other, by being tearful, and by having sleep disturbances. So you just think of that list and write down the behaviors you see that show that, and go to the doctor with the caregiver and let the doctor do the questions. I said that intentionally. Let the doctor do the questions. You as the daughter or son of a person being cared for shouldn't do the questions. The MD should, or the psychologist in the situation should. And take the caregiver burnout very seriously. Don't wait until you're so tired as a caregiver that you can't possibly do one more thing or you'll blow up. Don't wait. Go earlier. Tell your daughter or your son, you have to go to the caregiver doctor. Not he, not she, you. I need to go because I'm tired and I have to find out how to get help. And if go once yourself without your patient, and talk to the doctor ahead of time and see what the doctor says about this question, and then take your mother or your father. So I think there's a lot to be said for the doctor's appointment. If you want to go once without your loved one, you should do that. But you should go with your loved one, and you just go there and be the mediator and don't run the discussion. Let the doctor run it. Now, this information came from the Council on Aging from Orange County and the Alzheimer's Association and the Caregiver Resource Center, www.caregiverocorangecounty.org. So you can understand all of that and see what kind of pressure you're under by yourself before you go to the doctor. The memory of your loved one might be impaired, processing of information might be impaired, anger might be manifest, and you'd have to get help. Go for it. Thank you very much.
You've been listening to another exciting edition of Silver Moments with your host, Dr. Marcia Baltimore. Please join us once again this same time next week when we return for another edition of Silver Moments live from Seal Beach, California, Leisure World. Right here on CRN Digital Talk Radio.